Welcome back, everyone, to the Game Time Podcast. We are continuing on with our NBA playoff talk. We are talking Knicks versus Pacers, the series that a lot of people wanted. We've got Darrel in the house, obviously, the Pacers fan. It's going to be an interesting conversation. I'm excited for it. We're going to preview this Eastern Conference Finals. And Darrel, you're the Pacers fan. I mean, I'm a Pacers fan, but you're the season ticket holder. I will let you get your opening remarks out for this Pacers and Knicks series, and then me and Ramon will follow off of that.
Okay, well, I won't take a whole lot of time, right? Contrary to what you think, since I'm a Pacer fan, here are a couple things I'm taking away from this early on. Knicks fans are real excited about beating Boston. They're celebrating as if they've already beat the Pacers and won the title. We'll see what happens there. But from a game playing perspective, I like the way the Pacers are playing coming into this series. They both teams are healthy. Pacers are energetic. Pacers can go 10 players deep and not lose a lot. The Knicks are going to probably play 7, maybe 8 guys maximum. I believe that the Pacers collectively, with pressure on defense and offensive pressure as well, have an opportunity to wear New York down. My head tells me, let me go back. My heart tells me Pacers need to do it in 6 because I don't know that the Pacers can go back to back in the Garden, game 7, and win in the Garden. I keep having these nightmares about Larry Johnson and that fake 4-point play against Antonio Davis back in the Eastern Conference Finals back in, I want to say it was '98 if I remember right. So I'm not going to bank on the Pacers being able to win in 7. So my heart says they got to do it in 6, but I think my head says the Knicks in 7 probably because I think that Garden it has going to have an effect on not just the New York Knicks players, but also too the referees and how things are being played. I don't think the Pacers are going to panic at all. I think they're going to play like seasoned veterans like they have been. But I just think Game 7 in the Bronx, excuse me, in Madison Square. I'm thinking about the Yankees in Madison Square Garden will wind up being a little too much for my Pacers if it goes to 7. But I think it'll go 6, and the Pacers win at Bankers Life Fieldhouse in Game 6.
Ramon, you go ahead.
Man, it's going to be interesting, man. It's going to be a throwback. First of all, I would like to see Charles Oakley and Patrick Ewing and John Starks and Reggie Miller and the Flying Dutchman and uh man, what's the two big dudes' names? You on mute, man. You on mute. The Davis boys.
Dale and
Yeah.
Antonio Davis.
Love to see the Davis boys back here, Derek McKee, all of them, everybody to show up at the game. Sit across from each other and make mean faces, man. I want to see all of that, man. That would be great. Who do I think gonna win? Woo. This is gonna be a tough one. I think it's gonna be a better series than people really think. I think New York is offensively better than what we probably think they are. And I think the Pacers are defensively better than what we give them credit for. So what we perceive as each person's strength and each person's team's weakness, they're actually not that weak at all in what we think their weakness is. So I think that's going to make for a better game. I think it's going to boil down to whose point guard not only plays the best, but does the most. All right. Hallie's going to have to do he's going to have to rebound, score, defend, and still dish that thing out. Point guard for the Knicks, he's going to have to score, be deadly in the fourth quarter, but he's going to have to defend because this team can score the ball, and he don't defend it very well. All right. So it's going to be whoever's point does the most and not the most of what they're used to doing, what they're good at. What else can you bring to the table in this game? All right. because everything else, the defense is going to be there, scoring is going to be there, energy is going to be there. It's going to be a great series. I hope we don't get into a place where we see other things stepping into the game. Certain people getting fouls that they probably shouldn't get. Certain people not getting fouls that they probably should get. Technical fouls being thrown, warnings being thrown, letting people play too much at one point, then not enough at the other point. I hope it's just real good basketball because these are two really good basketball teams. With that being said, I'm going Pacers in 6.
We didn't plan that either, by the way, Isaiah. We did not plan
No,
that.
you're all good. So I have been back and forth thinking about this series. I still a little tossed up here. But for me, I think the big thing with New York, and I think everyone's kind of has woken up to this, is the Pacers offensively are going to wear New York down. And I think everyone can say what they want about, oh, well, this player got hurt against Indiana, this player got hurt against New York. Um, it doesn't matter. If you look at it, Indiana was going to beat Cleveland regardless. They beat Cleveland with, most of the roster healthy. You look at the series against Milwaukee. Let's all be real here. Milwaukee was not going to win that series with Brook Lopez on the floor. So let's give Indiana and New York the credit that it's due. Both of these teams deserve to be where they're at right here and right now. But I think the big thing for New York is how are they going to go against Indiana? Because if you can't beat them while they're pushing the pace, Indiana's going to look for a mismatch and they'll set up a mismatch as quickly as possible. When Hallie brings the ball up the floor, the first thing they do is either a Siakam screen or a Turner screen because they want that mismatch early on, and then the rest of the offense is flowing on around that. If you can't beat them via pace, or if you are stopping their pace, they're going to immediately start looking for a mismatch. There's no way you slow this Indiana team down. You kind of have to do what Cleveland did in that one game, Darrel, where they kind of got Indiana off their rocker and you made them not play how they wanted to play. That's the only way you stop Indiana. If you got to score with them. Indiana has become a better defensive team, Darrel. You've made that known, and I have seen it as well. This team is a better defensive team than they were last year, and that's why they're way more scarier as well. I think what's going to be the catalyst for New York making this competitive is we talk about how Indiana has all these guys that can create buckets for themselves. And I think for New York, they've got these group of guys that can put up 20 points a night and stuff like that. These teams are evenly matched. I think New York, for me, a little bit, they kind of have that strength in, I guess I'll say star players. I think Bridges and OG, you could say they could be a second or third option on a championship team elsewhere. But in this scenario, they're more like 3 and 4. But at some nights, they're 2 and 3. And I think that's what's the scariest thing for me when they go up against Indiana. But Indiana, as we said, is a better defensive team. But I think for New York, it is going to come down to the defensive side of the ball for them because I believe they can score with Indiana, but can they stop Indiana is the biggest thing. And then the big point I want to make for Indiana, and I'm looking in the camera when I say this, Tyrese Halliburton, you have to score the ball. I understand his bread and butter is creating opportunities for his offense, but you have to score. This Pacers team is like 27-5 when Tyrese puts up over 20 points. You have to score the ball, and you have to be willing to score the ball. In that game, and I go all the way back to the play-in championship, the tournament championship, in-season tournament, whatever it's called, against the Lakers. The Lakers won that game because Tyrese Halliburton only took like 7 shots. Tyrese has to shoot this ball, and he has to be aggressive, or New York will win this series. I am going to go Pacers in 6 as well. I think it just makes too much sense. New York's going to drop one to Indiana in New York, but I don't think Indiana's going to drop one to New York at Gainbridge. Indiana has one loss in these playoffs at home. It's just it's not gonna. I don't think you're looking at two arenas where the crowds are going to be just rapid. They're going to be there. There's going to be a lot of energy, but I think Indiana has shown their experience and everything else. I think they're going to get a game out of Madison Square Garden. If Boston can do it, I think you can do it as well. I mean, you won a game seven there and you blew them out in a game seven. Now, obviously, New York wasn't that healthy, and I think that's another aspect to all this too. But I think Indiana is going to get it done. Maybe that's a little bit of me being from Indiana as well, but I think Indiana has just shown too much this year not to beat New York. This is still pretty much the same New York team, except they have Karl Anthony Towns, who will be a factor, but these teams match up really well against each other, in my opinion, when you look at starting five versus starting five and bench versus bench. But I think at the end of the day, I think Indiana's scoring and the way they push the tempo, I just think I don't think there's a team that can compete with them, and if they can compete with them, it's out west.
Well, let me share a couple of nuggets with you, and I'm done. Looking at, from a playoff perspective, Pacers currently are number one in the playoffs at 40.6% from the three, right? Pacers are number one in field goal total percentage 50.1. Pacers are also number one in assists per game, 29.7. Next team is 26. That was the Clippers. They're out right now. And then points per game, 117.7. So those are all stats to back up what you just said. New York's gonna have to score, and they got scores. But who gets the timely stops, or who makes some timely mistakes at the critical time? I think those are going to be the things that make swing this series one way or the other.
Yeah, and I think people have to realize that this Indiana team, they don't make that many mistakes offensively, and that's because Tyrese is manning the ship. But it's a real interesting series, and I don't think people are giving this series enough credit for how interesting it's going to be. This could be a seven-game series, right? I don't think anyone's denying this won't be a seven-game series. It has the potential to be, but I think it's kind of crazy to think. I agree. I think Madison Square Garden is going to be insane for the Eastern Conference Finals, but I think I have more belief in Indiana winning in Madison Square Garden than I do the Knicks going into Gainbridge and getting a victory out of there. I think maybe they get one, but to me right now, I feel like Indiana could win one out of Madison Square Garden, because the same way New York's going to be popping, I think Indiana is going to be popping, especially Game 3 in Indiana. Game 3 in Indiana will have the Indy 500 and the Eastern Conference Finals. Indiana's going to be on fire for the next couple weeks, and that doesn't bode well for New York, and New York's going to be popping as well, and that's not going to bode well for Indiana. This is going to be, we've had a lot of good series, but this may be the best one out of all these playoffs.
Yeah, it shows it should be. We just got to put it on the wood and make it happen.
Ramon, final thoughts before we move over to Denver and Oklahoma City?
Yeah, just taking a look and correct me, Kyle, if I'm wrong. The Pacers beat the Knicks 3 times this year, right?
Correct.
All right. Looks like my man Hallie in those 3 victories had an average of 25 points. 15, 35, and 26, somewhere around there. All right. If and when he scores, they will beat the Knicks.
Yep.
Period. He's got to score. And one of those 2 losses that they had against the Knicks, he didn't score, right? If I remember this correct. Or something like that.
Yeah, really bad game.
Yeah. If he brings everything to the table, this is not a series. You know, it'll be interesting. It'll be fun to watch. But the Pacers, when he comes and he brings everything, he sets the whole table. Look, I'm going to make the meal, serve the dinner. You know, I'm going to eat too. They are the better team.
Yep.
He just got to come ready to eat. He just can't serve it. He can't fix it. He got to eat too.
Because
when he sits at the table and eat, it's over.
When he scores, everyone else scores. When he's not scoring, everyone else is not scoring. You know, when Nesmith gets that 3 from the corner because Halliburton kicks it out to him, if Halliburton's already scored at that point, Nesmith's probably going to hit that 3. I think the other thing that's going to come into effect here is the Pacers bench, right? Obi Toppin's been amazing these playoffs. I think Obi Toppin's played very well for this team. McConnell was the star of last year, but I think I got to give credit to Obi Toppin. He has been the star of this year for the Pacers when it comes to coming off the bench. I got to show some love to someone he's been rooting for the Pacers all year, Paul Pierce. And he kind of said it. He said it a couple of days ago. He said, I don't think the Knicks understand what this Pacers team is going to do. They're going to outrun and they're going to outpace this Knicks team, and I'm kind of on the same boat. I think the Pacers are just going to outplay the Knicks, and they're going to beat them with their pace. But let's move on to the next series. The last one we need to cover here: Oklahoma City versus Denver, Game 7. It's going down tonight. I'm locking in my pick. I've said it. I said it when we had the Lakers debacle. I have Oklahoma City winning this series. I think they will win tonight. Obviously, it looks like Aaron Gordon's not going to play, which does suck for Denver. But you still got Jokic and Murray, so you're not out of it. I got Oklahoma City winning this. I want to go back to Game 5 because I give Shea a lot of credit. That was an MVP performance, and I got to give credit to the NBA. They have not announced the MVP yet, and the two frontrunners are playing in a Game 7 tonight. So whoever wins this series, congratulations, you're going to win the MVP, and it's going to be Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. The Thunder will beat the Denver Nuggets here tonight. Where is it in Oklahoma City? Yeah. So give me the Thunder. Thunder will win Game 7
Yeah,
tonight.
I'm on you on that one as well too. I picked Denver in the beginning of the series because I felt Jokic being the best player in the series and them having that championship DNA would push them over the top. But when they blew that game, I think I forget it was game
It's
3
five. I thought
when
it
they
was five.
it was a 5. Okay, when they blew that game, I really thought their hopes went away. And then when you talk about Aaron Gordon, the most recent report I'm looking at here is that he's doubtful, but it will give it a shot, which means even if he gives it a shot, you're not going to be impactful. The only thing I would say is I would say Denver probably covers, even though they don't have Gordon because of Jokic and Murray. But I don't think there's any way that Denver beats Oklahoma City tonight based off all the things that have gone on with Denver. The way they have a short bench. That's the other thing. You think the Knicks play a short bench? Denver has a short bench as well. So with that combination, I don't give Denver much chance to win the game unless Jokic has some Herculean effort, plays 45 minutes, and he and Murray are just doing tit for tat.
Yeah, I was gonna say that as well. I'm like Murray's gonna have to. We talk about Jamal. You talk about Jamal Murray. He's a 16 game player. He's a playoff player. If Jamal Murray wants to prove that, if he wants to show why he is, that's what he's gonna have to do tonight. If they're gonna want to win this game, Ramon, what are you thinking heading into this Game 7?
Man, originally I thought that the Nuggets would win. But with the injury, I'm not sure. I'm leaning toward OKC a little bit now. I'm still worried about their inexperience and it being Game 7 and being high stakes. But they got more guns in this battle than Denver does right now. And if Joker don't become Joker and then some, this may get out of hand. So I'm gonna go with my brain says OKC, my heart says Denver. So I'm gonna go with my brain.
And there's still a chance Denver wins this series tonight, right? Like there's still
Yeah.
you've got Jokic, who's arguably the best player in the league. You've got Jamal
I don't think
Murray,
it's. I
who
don't think it's an argument. I don't think it's an argument about Jokic being the best player in the league. I know we say
yeah,
that right
Yeah, he's the
as a
best player in the
precursor.
league.
Yeah,
and then and
you
then you've
know,
and then you've got Jamal Murray, who I would still say maybe is a top 10 point guard. Obviously, that may have changed. We need to do a top 10 point guards list when we get to the
yeah.
dog days of
The the
summer.
the
I
the,
did it
top,
with Darrel.
the top list I think is going to go over really well.
I want to do a top 10 point guards. I did it with Darren last summer, and we both agreed Jamal Murray was at 4. Now, obviously, that's maybe changed because a year has gone by. But I think the Nuggets have a shot tonight. Keep an eye on Westbrook. Westbrook's played really well these playoffs as well. For them off the bench. But yeah, I think Oklahoma City's got it. I said Oklahoma City at the start of this series. and I'm sticking with that. I think they win tonight. I would not be shocked if Denver won. But now on to the other question, fellas. How do either of these teams match up against Minnesota? Let's start with Oklahoma City since that looks like who's going to win tonight just based off, the roster and how loaded they are. Oklahoma City and Minnesota. Me personally, maybe because they beat my Lakers, so I'm showing a little bit of respect. I have Minnesota. Well, I already said it. I got Minnesota going to the finals. I think just the way I've seen Ant leap this year and with his playoff production, I know the Thunder are a pretty deeper roster, maybe a little bit deeper than Oklahoma City, but uh, we Shay's pretty good at closing games out, but I think Ant's gonna get it done. I think maybe he doesn't win the chip, but I think he's getting to the finals this year. So, what do you guys think on a Minnesota Oklahoma City Western Conference Finals?
My take is I think Minnesota is bigger more athletic at the bigger positions. I think Oklahoma City is deeper from player perspective. Like, I think Oklahoma City has better players 1 through 10.
Yeah,
But I think the framework with Ant, Nas, and then Rudy Gobert manning the middle. Because remember, he's going to be playing against Chet Holmgren. And Chet Holmgren, yes, he's long, but he's about 165 pounds soaking wet. And I just don't know that, after playing against Joker this series, how well Holmgren is going to be able to hold up. Because remember, he was out early part of the season. So early, in the season. So I like the matchup with Minnesota if it's Oklahoma City. And I would say Minnesota wins that series as well. Because I think in that case, the way they've been playing, I think Ant will be the better player in that series.
I would agree. Ramon, what are your thoughts on Minnesota versus Oklahoma City?
I like Oklahoma City better
Oh, okay.
in
Okay.
that one. I think SGA is just as good as Ant. Ant's just, it looks prettier. It's more exciting. But I think the MVP will win is better. Uh, as of this year, just this year, he's a better player this season. Uh, I like I the bigs for OKC. I like them better versus the bigs for the Thunder. I think it's a more manageable game. I think though if Denver wins, I like Denver over OKC. Oh,
You mean
excuse me, I like
Minnesota?
Denver. I like Minnesota over Denver.
Okay. Gotcha.
I'm sorry, I like Minnesota over Denver. So I don't like the Minnesota OKC matchup. I just think that's going to be that's a lot. I like their deep. I like their deeper. I like they got more guns. I think that's going to be a matchup that's going to give Minnesota some problems.
Well, I think Minnesota, I think depth wise, I mean, obviously Oklahoma City definitely has the reach, but I don't think Minnesota's too far off when it comes to depth to match Oklahoma City. Obviously, Oklahoma City has a little more reach there, but I think Minnesota has the depth to go with them. What do you think about the big man side of things? You said the big men and then you said Oklahoma City. So what were you? Can you reaffirm the big men part?
I just think that if you look at the bigs for both teams, right?
Uh-huh.
I look at the Thunder's bigs and I say, okay, they may have an advantage, right? But I don't think it's that big of an advantage to offset the overall team thing.
Gotcha. Okay.
Whether now, I think though, if you bring in if it's Denver, excuse me, if it's Denver and Minnesota, you know, I think there's a big difference in that look, especially with if old boy Gordon, who's I don't know what he's a tweener, if he doesn't play.
Yeah.
So I think that the difference becomes greater in a certain way. So like if we're looking at OKC, I think like I said, I think the Thunder, Minnesota's bigs are better,
Yeah.
but it ain't that much better.
I gotcha. No, yeah, it's gonna be interesting, and I think the other part of this Minnesota and Oklahoma City series, if we do get it, I gotta give a lot of credit to J Dub as well. I really like is it Jalen Williams? Is that his name? I think so.
But it's two of them. Which one? Jalen with the Y or Jalen with the E?
Oh
One
man,
from
I don't
Arkansas,
know.
one from Arkansas,
The
one from Santa
darker
Clara. Santa
the
Clara. Jalen with an E.
thank
Jalen
you.
with an E.
I like
Anybody with the name Jalen in any sport is good.
is a bucket. Yeah.
I got name.
I think that could be a catalyst too. He's pretty good as well. Um, I really like this Minnesota team. And you talk about Ant and the flashiness and stuff like that. The flashiness doesn't really, like I said, for me it doesn't matter. I think it's just, I was very critical of him, and I said it I think before the series and even before the Lakers when I said, there was times last year where in that game 7 against Denver last year, I brought it up a lot on this podcast where he just kind of didn't show up until the end. He has been consistent throughout these playoffs. And I think that's what's been the catch for me for Ant this year. That's what's been different for me for Ant, and he's become a better shooter. Just statistically, he has become a better shooter than he was last year. And I think that's what gives me the edge. Not because of the flashiness or stuff like that. You can see the improvements that he's made in his game to take that next step to get this team where it needs to be. And I think he realized, without having Cat there and you put in Julius Randle, there was a lot of questions about what is Minnesota doing. Randle's not a playoff guy, stuff like this. If anything, Randle's gotten better, and I think that is because of Ant and the leap he has made as a player as a whole.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
we didn't mention Hardenstein either, by the way, for OKC. And I know that Ramon, you didn't mention it, but you may have been talking about Hardenstein as well, coming over from New York last year. This is a 7-footer. He's got a nice touch around that 8 to 12 foot range. He's got a nice over his left shoulder jump hook, and he looks a little unorthodox. That dude can play, man.
yeah. Like I said, I don't think that that's a big advantage for a Minnesota team, the bigs. But and when I was talking about Ant-Man and being flashy, I'm not saying that flashy is
Bad?
bad or good. But I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying that when you have a person like SGA who is a mid-range guy, kind of stop and go, he's a throwback to his game.
Yeah.
Almost. You don't look at that as how great it really is because it's not what we want to see right now. You're not going to see a bunch of his clips on Twitter and Instagram and stuff like that because what he does is workmanlike. So I mean, there shouldn't even be a debate on who's the MVP this year.
No, I agree. Yeah.
But there is because his game is normal.
Mm.
If he had the same year he had this year and he was dunking on cats, screaming, it'd be a no-brainer.
I thought he was MVP last year too. To be honest, I thought he was MVP last year.
He's going to always have that because his game is a 1990s game. So he's going to always have that yeah.
Well, except for the extra falling, though. I mean, that's not 1990. That's the current piece there.
That's definitely nowadays. But
yeah,
you know what I'm talking about, man.
Man.
I
Tell
said,
them yeah, I'm with you.
Man, kick him off the podcast.
Look, Darrel's starting to become the villain of the show, so we gotta let him. We gotta let him play that. We gotta let him be that character and play that role.
Hey, it's easy. It's easy, right? Because it goes usually against what people think. And I love you're right. Shea is a hell of a player. Jokic is a hell of a player. But at some point, you've got to kind of break up all the flailing and swinging and just play ball. And here's what my proposal is for the rules committee. If you saw that play with Jokic and I think it was Jalen Williams, if I remember right,
when they got
at the
tangled,
top of the key,
yeah.
When they're not tangled.
Ridiculous.
Okay, we can stop. They're not tangled. They're keeping their arms in play. You know what I call it? I say you do like a boxing referee. You pause the game, break yourselves apart, back to it, because that's all. Both of them are trying to get a foul on the other guy.
Yeah.
They got their arms up, acting like you have a guy. He'll hold a guy's arm down with his arm, and he's like, I'm trying to." Like, no, just play basketball. So maybe we call for the boxing break. Say break, so no one gets a foul. That way, you don't get a call on a guy who really shouldn't have got the call.
Yep.
You break it up, and you keep on moving. Because a lot of tangling up of late too. By the way, a lot of tangling up.
No, I agree. That was Definitely ridiculous. We've got under 6 minutes left here in this segment, so I do want to end it off. We got Ramon's thoughts on KD and Steph, so I want to get his thoughts on the lottery as well. The Dallas Mavericks getting the first overall pick to a lot of fanfare on Twitter and Instagram and everywhere else. Everyone's in an uproar. Is the league rigged? What is Adam Silver doing? Are the Spurs going to get Giannis now that they got the second pick? Everybody, the Twitter was up in flames that night. Ramon, what are your overall thoughts about the lottery? And Dallas getting the first overall pick. Obviously, as a divorced Lakers fan, you may be a little happy that this backfired on the Lakers trading for Luka. Obviously, I am not, but I'm curious to see what you think.
I don't know how it backfired on the Lakers, man. This ain't got nothing to do with them. But I think that I wouldn't go get Giannis.
If you're the Spurs, right? Because I don't think Dallas will.
Yeah, if I'm the Spurs, I'm not sure what they do, man. I don't know if I go get Giannis either if I'm the Spurs, man. Unless you're talking about getting rid of the 8-footer. I don't know how his development works or happens with Giannis in the building. I just don't, and Pop not in the building.
And Darrel, you said that last week too.
I don't know how
Great
that
players be tough.
Yeah, if you had Pop who's done it before, then I'll be like, okay. But you ain't got Pop. Now you're bringing in an old guy who's definitely looking for a championship, a new guy who's trying to find his way, and now you're going to damper his light a little bit. You're going to limit his touches. You're going to clog the inside up. I really don't know how that works. Now, that number one pick, Dallas is going to get your boy from
Cooper
Duke.
Flag.
Yeah, I like Cooper Flag.
So do I.
But I don't know if he's a superstar. He reminds me of Andre Karolinka a lot.
Oh my goodness, that's an insult. That's a punch to the gut. Oh my god.
He does. His functional movement reminds me of him a lot. And I'm not saying that he's not going to be better, but I think he's going to be in that mold.
Interesting.
So
I tell you, for me and everything I've seen and heard from players over last summer, how he played against those current pros and how he balled out, and not because he went to Duke, because I'm not a Duke fan or even a Duke hater, just don't care either way. I think the guy has an opportunity, to be great. But here's the other thing you got to think about: we don't know who Dallas's coach is going to be. Jason Kidd's gone. So that's the other. Yeah. They. I thought, if I remember,
I don't think
maybe
so.
I'm wrong. Maybe I had a dream about. Maybe I had a dream that they agreed to part ways.
He's not gone yet.
I think I had a dream of it because here's my thinking with that with Cooper Flag. Do you when Kyrie's coming back probably January or February of next year? Davis will be there. They've got their bigs. He's going to have an opportunity to really blossom early on because there's going to be a lot of more ball sharing early on in that October, November, December, January timeframe. Because when Kyrie gets back, he's going to have the ball in his hands more. We know that. So this is going to give Cooper Flag an opportunity early on in his NBA career to kind of mark his territory a little bit.
Yeah. No, I think Flag will do well in Dallas. You'll be next to AD, you'll be next to Kyrie. That'll be some good mentorship, I feel like, as well. As for the Giannis thing, I did see a report. It's reports are reports, but apparently Giannis would like to stay in the East, and his two main targets are Toronto and Brooklyn. And I even said it on the pod. I think it was last week, Darrel, where I was like, I want to say Toronto, but they're trying to figure something out over there. I like Giannis in Toronto. I mean, him next to Scotty Barnes, they trade, but the thing is, they just got Ingram. So do you move off of Ingram? Because you can't.
Of course you do. But they signed him to a deal. So, but it's not a crazy. I want to say it was 4-year 160.
It was something like that.
It's about 40, right? So it's not in today's climate. It's not crazy numbers, but you'd have to get some picks back from Toronto if you're going to take on Ingram's salary.
Yeah.
So, Toronto does have some picks. The problem is they'd have to give them all up to get Giannis.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting. We've got like 1 minute and 30 seconds. So, Ramon, I want to get your final thoughts here on anything you want to get out, and then we will wrap up the show.
Yeah. I got one final thought. Cleveland, what you going to do with all them quarterbacks, man?
It wasn't, hey, we want a show not with no Bronny. We got to, no Bronny mention this show. There we go. What you
going to do with all them quarterbacks, man? And believe it or not, no matter what people say, both of them, Shador and Gabriel, both look good in that little rookie camp.
They did.
Forget what media say, because they're going to sling it the way they want to sling it. But if you look at all the throws,
they look good.
Both of them look good.
We're going to have to see. I think we're due for an NFL segment. We'll have to see. But I think next week, fellas, we may have to do a top 10 point guards list. We will discuss that.
Yeah, because you said your boy was number 4.
Well, last year, Jamal Murray last year, not this year. Not this year. But
also too, we gotta remember arrows as well too.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you see him or did you not see him? So we can play around with that. I think it'd be some good content too.
All right, fellas, that is going to do it for this week on the Game Time Podcast. There may be a little break in the action because I'm going on a cruise, but we will be back right before you know it, and we'll have guests coming up very soon. But that's going to do it for this episode of the Game Time Podcast.